Welcome to Skip the Queue, a podcast for people working in or working with visitor attractions. I'm your host, Kelly Molson. Each episode, I speak with industry experts from the attractions world. In today's episode, I speak with Esther Johnson, freelance designer and illustrator specialising in working with heritage sites. We discuss the importance of having niche products in your gift shop, how you can develop these for your attraction, and what you need to think about before taking the plunge. If you like what you hear, you can subscribe on all the usual channels by searching Skip the Queue. Esther, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. It's so lovely to see you again.
Thank you very much for having me. Very flattered.
I love the backdrop that you've got there as well. For everyone that's watching this on YouTube, I can see your beautiful illustrations that we're going to talk about in the background.
Yes.
It's a lot more beautiful than my background.
No, it's authentic. It's authentic working from home. We redid it last year at the start of April, and didn't know that it was going to be really useful for having meetings like this. So,
who did?
Thank you very much.
You are welcome. Right, as ever, we're going to start off with some icebreaker questions. So, if money was no limit, what would be your absolute dream holiday?
Oh, easy. Nashville. I'm such a big country music fan. I absolutely love Nashville, and I would love to go and sort of like listen to like the music and sort of like drink the beer and everything, like proper Nashville. Want to do it. That is on my bucket list. So if I had all the money, yeah, that's straight where I'd go.
I love that. There was no hesitation whatsoever in that at all. Yeah, I've got this planned already.
No, because someone asked me and I was like, literally country music. It's all I listen to as well. Like during the day, it's all I listen to. So.
Who was your favourite country music artist?
Okay, so a bit of a girl crush on Carrie Underwood. I've seen her, I think it's like 3 times in London. And yeah, I think I just absolutely I think she's just such an incredible performer. And I love her outfits and I love just everything that she's doing. But Carrie Underwood. All right. Yeah.
I think you've just set the Spotify playlist for me for the rest of the day then.
Yeah,
I have to check her out.
Yeah, so I've got a playlist. Yeah, definitely. Definitely Carrie Underwood.
Okay, what is your food-based guilty pleasure?
Probably After Eights. So I have a few like food allergies, so my palate is barely limited at times. So After Eights are literally my go-to for everything. It's like the only chocolate I can have, so it's definitely my guilty pleasure.
The only chocolate you have? Wow. Okay. Do you play the After 8 game when you eat them as well?
No, waste time. No, straight in.
Messy too, depending on the time of year.
Of course. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. This might tie in actually to your dream holiday. If you could only listen to one album for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Probably Tommy Scott. This is very Scottish, but it's literally my family's favourite kind of tunes and songs. But Tommy Scott, and he'll do like a range of We Belong to Glasgow and all these very Scottish things. So Tommy Scott. I don't know what album, but anything he's done, I will. All right.
I don't know Tommy Scott. I'm going to have to put him in my playlist.
And maybe recognise if you've been to a Burns night or like a Kaylee or like New Year's Eve, literally they'll play some of his music.
Esther, it's unpopular opinion time.
My unpopular opinion is I really don't like pasta, and I'm sorry because I'm so sorry. I really don't like pasta, and if we've gone out for a restaurant and we've gone to like an Italian and you have pizza, why would you choose pasta over pizza? I just don't get it. So
I get you on that. There is no decision to be made there, but
rule away.
But you don't like pasta at all.
At all. Like I'd rather have. I mean, I like rice anyway, so I'd rather have rice, but yeah, literally if mum and dad are having pasta, I will have rice or something else or potatoes. But yeah, pasta, I don't know if it's the texture or if it's the taste or I don't know, it's just not for me at all.
I'll accept your unpopular opinion. I don't agree with it, but I think that there might be a few people
Yeah, I'm very much alone in this house as well. So
Right, let's get on to the serious questions. So Esther, I think we connected on LinkedIn quite a while ago. And I have to say, I'm really blown away by the illustrative work that you do. I think it's absolutely beautiful. But you're a freelance designer, but you specialize in illustrations and products for kind of heritage sites.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about how you started your business.
So it was back in 2017. I've just been on the Prince's Trust course. So they do an enterprise course, and it's like a 4-day sort of crash course into sort of running a business. So it does your taxes, your marketing, and so 4 days of like full on business stuff. And they were doing sort of like pros and cons of like being an entrepreneur or being self-employed. And every single one, I was like, yeah, I really want to be self-employed. I want to make my own sort of day job and routine. So got partnered with a mentor, and we started talking about what I could do as a business, really. So sort of creating that idea. And I said, I really like sort of sketchbooks and drawing and things like that. But things that I like drawing are sort of like the quirky characters of, not characters as in like Disney characters, but characteristics of places. And there was a program recently that really like summed up sort of like my sort of mindset into what I do for business. Hopefully what I aim to do for business. It was Tony Robinson, and he did this documentary on cathedrals in England. And he was saying that unless somebody pointed out these little details, you wouldn't know. So many people would just like walk past, and that's absolutely fine because it's all this history. And it's those kind of quirky things that we was talking about that I really loved and wanted to capture through illustration. So there was like a video on Facebook, I think it was, and it was all these railings that were really bizarre in London, and they were old World War II stretchers, and they'd been recycled into railings. And it's that kind of idea that I really like drawing. So we were like, well, how can we get that concept? Because it's heritage, it's history and sort of quirky characteristics. How can we get that concept into a business, basically? So we started thinking of places that were local to me. So in Medway and Chatham Dockyard sort of came to the list. And so one day, just sort of basically walked in. I had a couple of designs in a folder, and sort of when could I speak to the retail manager? Hadn't planned anything, didn't know what I wanted to say, and he didn't laugh me out the door, which was really nice. So he sort of said, "Yeah, we'll come back." He had a look at my designs in the folder, sort of seemed to like them. He said, "Come back with some designs, and we'll go from there." So that was it. So I went around the site, and Chatham Dockyard was like, I think it was like the biggest employer for Medway before it closed. But there's so many different aspects of it. So there's the 3 ships, there's a Victorian ropery where they filmed Call the Midwife, and there's all these buildings. So there were so many different aspects that I wanted to sort of capture that I felt like it couldn't go into one design. I felt like it would go as a collection. So I did By the Docks, so focused on the ships and the sort of maritime aspects of Chatham Dockyard, and called it By the Docks. And then the Long Walk, because the Victorian ropery, I think I'll probably get this wrong, but I think it's like a 1/4 mile long building. So called it the Long Walk, and the colours were sort of brown and sort of earthy in the sort of style that you would see when you go and visit. And then finally, I wanted to capture all the different buildings because it was like a little community in the dockyard. So they had like a little church, and they had a commissioner's house. And it's all things that you see passing by. So I had the 3 designs, came back, and he seemed to like them, which was really lovely because I had no degree, no experience, absolutely nothing to my name. And I thought, no one's going to take me seriously. But I think he saw that I was really interested in sort of the dockyard in particular and finding out the history of it and sort of capturing that through illustration. I think some of the comments that he said as well was that it was quite unusual that people would go, that an artist potentially or a designer would go and do some work specific to them. Normally they would either buy in stock or they would buy some designs from a catalogue kind of thing. And the fact that I sort of went and wanted to get it bespoke for them was a bit different. And it was those kind of like nuggets of information that sort of built into this idea of what I wanted to do for a business. So cut to, and then we went into a product launch. We had all these products and having like my name on these actual labels, and there being like barcodes and everything so professional. It was like, wow, this is lit the fire for what I wanted to do.
That must have been such an amazing feeling to be able to kind of
Mm.
go into a shop and pick up something that you have designed and you've illustrated, and it's there, it's a physical thing.
Yeah, I definitely been in there a few times to just take pictures and just be like, oh, this is so bizarre. So but yeah, it really sort of like sparked that sort of idea of that heritage is definitely the market that I want to go in and do it for other places. I mean, there's so many other museums in Medway and in Kent. So yeah, that's where it started. Really.
It's a brilliant story. I love that you were supported by Prince's Trust as well. I think they're such an incredible organisation, what they do for young people. Really fantastic. You're a mentor for them as well, aren't you?
So no, I'm a young ambassador for them. So every now and again, so over lockdown, there's been so many like enterprise courses that have been running, and on the week you get sort of, they call it an inspirational speaker at the end, which it's strange to recall that. And I sort of go on and sort of tell my story about how I run the business and how the Prince's Trust has helped. So I did like 8 of those over lockdown. So the demand for small businesses and people setting up their own business has definitely been on the increase. So but yeah, Prince's Trust, still keep in contact with my mentors and in contact with the Southeast and London region, which is incredible. I've never met a bunch of people that are just so willing for you to do well like, across the board. They're just, everyone's so happy and so excited about what you're doing, and it's really encouraging.
Oh, it's amazing, and I love the progression that you've made and what you've achieved so far. The reason that I got you on the podcast today is there's a few things that you mentioned in as you were kind of telling your story about how you set up. There's a few things that you mentioned that tie in really lovely with a past episode that we've had on the podcast. So back in November time, we had Simon Jones from Digital Visitor on. And at that point, we were talking a lot about kind of the fact that obviously attractions had been closed for a huge amount of 2020. As they were starting to reopen again, they needed to look at different ways of engaging with the visitor when they came, and actually not just when they come, but when they're buying from them online or when they're buying from on the gift shop on site. And Simon and I both very much talked about the fact that attractions need to stock products that you can't buy anywhere else. That's the whole point of going to that gift shop, is that you don't really want to just pop in there and buy something that you could pop to Tesco's and buy, or pop to your high street gift shop and buy. The reason for going is you've been to this fantastic attractional day. If you're going to go into the gift shop and buy something, you want to buy something that you can only get there, that is very kind of individual to that venue. And you touched on that a little bit when you were speaking about your client had kind of said that it's unusual for them to have illustrations that were very much focused on them rather than just buying something that was stock. So I kind of wanted to know, I wanted to talk through your process really, because I thought that would be really interesting for our audience, like how you work with an organization to do this. So can you tell us a little bit about like how that process starts? What do you do when you're first speaking to an attraction? How do you start that process of designing something that is bespoke for them?
Most important, it needs to be, I need to visit the place. There's obviously so much you can get from the internet and looking at social media, but actually visiting as a visitor and as a customer, you sort of see things that you wouldn't necessarily get on the internet. And also, I think a huge important part of when I do design is speaking to the staff, some of the visitors and some of the people that work there, because they're the experts in that place. They've been there, some of them have been there in like for their whole career and know every inch of the history of the museum or heritage site. And it's that kind of information that I think is crucial and is really helpful in making a really good design, because they'll know what visitors are always keen to go and look at, what are like the best sellers or the must-sees of each place. And it's that kind of information that you wouldn't get on maybe the internet, and you sort of get a feel, you get an idea of what the colours and sort of what the place is sort of laid out like, so that when you've done the whole journey and then you finish up at the gift shop, which sometimes that is kind of how it works in museums, you know what they're kind of expecting and what colour products they would want to have as part of their trip and their day out. So definitely very much go and visit it first, see it firsthand, and get in sort of imagery, photography from those places. And then I'll go back and sort of do some illustrations, do some designs, and sort of put together something. I'm very lucky that I get like sort of free reign to start off with. Here's the brief, here's what we want, go in, sort of create something. So then after that, we'll sort of put together a design, and I'll maybe put together some products that I think maybe might work. And then we sort of go from there. We sort of tweak it. Sometimes the information might be incorrect, or they prefer to take out some images. And it's a very sort of a partnership kind of relationship, because it's the people that I'm working with, they know the place inside out. So if I've taken something that I thought was interesting but doesn't quite work with their branding or with their sort of ethos, then it'll be taken out, and that's absolutely fine, because it's them that'll be selling it. It'll be them that are talking to the customers and sort of knowing what's going to sell and things like that. So design is created, and then we'll put it onto products, and normally I sort of help find the suppliers and recommend some products that I think might work with some designs from previous examples, previous museums that I've worked with. And then I also like doing the sort of end part, the packaging, because I found in some clients it's quite a small team in the retail side and don't necessarily have the time to look at swatches for binding, for oven gloves, and looking at fabric materials and all those kind of details. But I'd want to make sure that I'm putting my name on it, so I want to make sure it's the best product that it can be for the customer, and I want it to be well thought out, because like you say, they're spending their money and they want to have something that is bespoke for that place, and also you can add a bit of a premium to that product that has been like well thought out and things like that. So I really tried and go for the full process from start to finish, and they're helping with the packaging. And if you need sort of labels designed, I'm really like interested in that kind of whole design process.
It's really collaborative, isn't it? You're working really kind of hand in hand with them.
Yeah, I definitely feel that is the better way to go about it, rather than just here's a design, you pay me for that and you've got to deal with it, you've got to sell it. I'd rather it be something that they're proud of as well, and that they're passionate about it. And that really does help actually with the designers when you're speaking to the staff and customers and things like that. The passion of their site and the story that they are telling, when that passion comes over, it really influences the design, and sort of I get that passion as well, and then I get really excited thinking I really hope that they like it, and I really hope they can see that I've listened to what they've said and things like that. So little details that go in the design, I hope that comes across.
And how do you work with the site to kind of define what those products might be? Because I guess your illustrations can be applied to a variety of different products. How do you help that site define like what products are going to be the most popular for them and how they can make the most of them?
So normally they already have a shop and a sort of product range that they have already, and sometimes it is just a new product collection. So I can say that this design particularly works well with maybe confectionery or kitchenware. If it's a place that's not really had product development, or they've just potentially bought things for stock, it's kind of okay, so who's your target market? Who are the people that are coming in and buying tickets, and who are the people that are spending the most time in the gift shop? It's really the research that they have, and it's all their knowledge that really influences what the products. I can sort of suggest and say I think this would work really well for this target market, but they are the people that would know who is their customer. I'm not there to tell them this is what you should do at all. It really is I'd like to help, or I'd like to sort of contribute. So it really is down to them, to be honest. So
it's them. So if we talk about things that people need to think about before they start to speak to somebody like you who will help them develop those products, what do they need to know before they engage with you? What do they need to prepare beforehand?
I suppose it depends on what their end reason for having design. So an example would be some design I did for a client was not used for products, it was used for educational purposes, really. So getting the school kids would be a big part of their attraction, and they needed sort of like a branding or a mascot that could be sort of targeted to the children and sort of had little speech bubbles and sort of giving them the sort of educational purposes and the facts and figures of that. So that was a very different market.
If I gave you an ideal brief, what would be in that brief? You know, what would you need to know that you would have everything that was in that brief that you'd go, oh, this brief is perfect, I'm going to take that away and start?
Perfect brief would be fairly minimal. It would be come and visit on X, Y, and Z like the day, and then I go and sort of take inspiration from the place and sort of go from there. That I'd say would be the perfect brief. Or another one would be, we've got 5 sites and we're trying to collaborate them together because they're all a bit disjointed or something like that. And it'd be like, okay, right, I'll go to each 5 site, find out something specific, and then a design will be created that can collaborate each 5 site, and then you can sell it in each 5 site. So they're all brought together, finding out what their unique characteristics are to go on.
Is that harder to do? Because I guess, you know, if you're going to one site, there will be individual things about that site that are really, you know, bespoke to that site, you know, and it's kind of, it feels like it would be easier to create like one thing. How do you manage it when it's 5 different sites? You have to go through the same process at each site.
I suppose. So there's one particular client that I'm working with, the Brighton Pavilion Trust. So they've got 5 museums down in Brighton. So the Royal Pavilion is kind of like the classic, beautiful architectural building.
Such an iconic building, isn't it?
Yeah.
Everyone remembers it.
Beautiful. And then again, of course, I didn't know that they had 5 other sites that were all linked in the same thing, and they wanted to sort of create something that was uniformed. So went round and found all these like quirky little things that were in each site, and so I did all the buildings, drawn all the buildings, and then added little elements that were relevant, and then put them into one design. I normally put it into repeat just for textile design background, I suppose. Customers, I hope, will be able to sort of recognize all these different elements and then know that they can go to each different site and then find something else there.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I guess you might be a bit biased in the but bear with me. But I want to know, like, how important do you think it is that heritage sites do have niche products?
I think it's very important. So yes, I'm probably biased. I think it's very important because so my mindset for it is that you're spending X amount of money to go into ticket, like to get into the place, and it's a day out, and you wouldn't go there if it was just like a park or it had no memory or meaning to it. You go there because there is a purpose to that place, and the people are passionate about their history and what they're offering. They are ultimately offering a story and a place to go. And I think that it's only fair to sort of capture those stories into something that they can take home as a souvenir. And I suppose, the meaning of the souvenir is the whole reason why I sort of create bespokeness, is because you want something that you can only buy from that place. And I also think that like well thought design is important, rather than something that you think, oh, they didn't really care very much about the product. I think it's important to make sure that you do care about the end product, so that your customers know that you're passionate about the story, and you want them to come back and you want them to remember, and it'd be a nice gift that they can give to somebody else as well.
It's helping them kind of continue that story as well, isn't it? Continue the journey that they've been on by buying something that is only available there, that they then bring home, that then sparks those lovely memories that they've had of that day. And again, does it set as a, does it act as a reminder to say, we need to go there again? It's something that's in their house. They sort of physically see it all the time. We need to go back there. We need to revisit.
Yeah, of course. And I suppose if you go to like John Lewis, and they've got some beautiful collections from maybe artists or just well-designed products, you think, wow, that's really nice. I might want to sort of go back and add to the collection. So you've got a set of some really nice products. And I think, why couldn't you do that in a museum setting and a visitor site setting? Why can't you have like really beautiful products that maybe you want to go back and get the set, or maybe you see what else they've developed and think, I'd rather spend my money here than on a high street store. And I suppose it's making that decision made easy for customers to spend their money in a museum visitor site rather than somewhere else online. Or
Yeah, that's a great answer. Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. I think it's part of that whole mindset. Well, I mean, I think we would. I mean, there was a majority of people that were trying to kind of shift to, you know, buying local and buying niche and buying smaller products anyway. But there's definitely been a shift towards that more so since lockdown, you know, buying local, supporting independence and things. And I think if you can intertwine that into your kind of visitor centre as well, then that's a perfect offering.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
You might not have facts and figures and stuff for this, but I'd be interested to know if you've spoken to any of the attractions that you've worked with and seen what the uptake has been in those niche products compared to something that was a stock product that people would have been able to buy previously.
No, I don't have facts and figures. I would love to be able to say their revenue was amazing after they had the product. In obviously 2020, I had 5 projects that was going on to products that all got sort of put on hold. And I only really started the business in 2018. So in terms of facts and figures, it's quite difficult to sort of get them because it's quite a short time. However, I did get contacted by a charity called ABF, the National Soldiers Charity, in I think it was March, April last year, so during the lockdown. And we created a design and we created some products and it went quite well, and they had to reorder within a couple of months. And we did some Christmas cards that were e-cards, and now we're doing them onto physical Christmas cards. And we're doing some new product collections that are now stationery, confectionery, and we sort of expanded on the confectionery style. And the sort of response has been really good. In terms, I suppose it is a different market in terms of that it's a charity, a military charity, rather than a visitor attraction. But the sort of process is still the same thing. I still gain elements from what they do, what their ethos, why is the charity, what do they do, like why they do what they do, and put that onto design. And people sort of like I think they quite liked it, I suppose, because they were like, yes, this is the charity that I support and have a lot of relationships or memories with this charity, and yeah, I want to support them. And the fact that they've got a lovely designed product, even better. So instead of just sort of donating money, which people do every month, they actually get a product for it and something they can sort of admire us, but not admire.
No, I totally get that. I think it's really relevant, regardless of whether, you know, that's a charity or an attraction that you're talking to. I think that it comes back to that idea of people are making really big choices about where they spend their money. And that charity and that attraction is really important to them. Therefore, they're choosing to spend their money there, and they want something that they can only get at that venue. I think that's the message that we're driving through today, isn't it? That it is really important that your venue has something that is so special and so unique to you that people can only spend their money there on that product.
Yeah, because ultimately the people will go there for a particular reason because of the story that they tell, and if it can be some way reflected into a lovely product that they can then purchase and help, then the money goes back into the refurbishment or the continuation of that organization. I think all the better for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so other than behind your head, where I can see some of your beautiful products, again, if you're not watching this on YouTube, apologies. What attractions have you worked with, and where can we find out a bit more about your work?
Okay, so Chatham Dockyard, as I so alluded to start off with, they still sell the 3 designs that I started my business on, so you can go and buy them there. Chelsea Pensioners was such an amazing project to work on, sort of going around the Chelsea Pensioners site, the Royal Hospital, and speaking with Chelsea Pensioner and getting all that thing. So they have products and they have it online as well. So if you have any connection to the Chelsea Pensioners, that was a really good project to work on. So the Brighton Pavilion Trust, I really hope I've got that name right, but so soon this year we're working on some products that will combine all the 5 sites that they have, and we're putting them onto products. So it would have come out 2020, but obviously it was postponed. So hopefully this year, maybe next year, Brighton will have some new products designed by me.
That's so exciting. I think it's wonderful. I've really enjoyed chatting to you today, just to find out more about that process and how it works. If anyone wants to get in touch with you, where's the best place that they can do that?
I suppose website, email, designedbyesther.co.uk. Instagram, I try and put a lot more on Instagram.
Fabulous. And we will put all links to Esther's contact details in the show notes anyway. So don't worry if you didn't grab that. You'll be able to pop over and hit her up if you want to chat with her and find out a little bit more about how she can help. We always end our podcast, though, with asking about a book that you'd recommend to our listeners. So a book that you love, or something that's helped shape your career in some way. So what's your suggestion for us today?
Okay, so ashamedly, I've not read many books. However, over lockdown, there's a lady called Holly Tucker who co-founded Not on the High Street and Holly & Co. And she's been doing these like Instagram lives 2-3 times a week, and they've been so inspirational, so motivating, and she really just like captures what small businesses and sort of no entrepreneurs are going through, and she really she answers questions, and she's just so helpful. So she has a book coming out called Do What You Love, Love What You Do, and I pre-ordered it, and I'm so excited to read it. Yeah, over lockdown, she has really inspired me to think, actually, why do I want to run a business, and why do I want to continue what I'm doing? So she has been a big boost in daily running of my business. So yeah, I really recommend her. And also, if you just watch her Instagram lives, she's so interesting and so personable, and she's just incredible. So
I love that. I think that's a perfect book for this episode, right? It fits really well with what we've been talking about in terms of product. So
perfect. Yeah.
Good recommendation. All right. Well, look, as ever, listeners, if you want to win a copy of this book, then if you head over to our Twitter account, which is Skip the Queue, and if you retweet this episode announcement with the comment, I want Esther's book, then you will be in with a chance of winning it.
But yeah, it should be a good one.
Esther, thank you so much for coming on today. I've really enjoyed finding out a bit more about what you do. And I think that process, understanding a bit of that process that you go through when you work with attractions, will definitely help our audience if they're thinking about developing a bespoke product in some way that is going to be really individual for them. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for asking me. I hope it has been of some use.
It absolutely will be. Thanks for listening to Skip the Queue. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a 5-star review. It really helps others find us. And remember to follow us on Twitter for your chance to win the books that have been mentioned. Skip the Queue is brought to you by Rubber Cheese, a digital agency that builds remarkable systems and websites for attractions that helps them increase their visitor numbers. You can find show notes and transcriptions from this episode and more over on our website, rubbercheese.com/podcast.